Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to this amazing series of Dawah Made Easy. In today's episode, we are going to speak something related to plague, but not about plague. We are going to speak something, a new issue which has come into this ummah, which I believe never existed in the last 1,400 years, which is doing ibadah, praying Jumah or 5 times Salah or Taraweeh or the Eid Salah via online. Now, this is a new issue, a new problem. People are confused what to do, and there are all sort of opinions going around. So we thought of, let's get all these opinions and this confusion together and make a video, questions related specific to this online ibadah or worship or online interaction. So today we have with us brother Waseem from IREA to discuss on this particular issue. Welcome to the show, brother Waseem. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. So, as you are aware that things are going online and people are circulating messages and videos and their opinions. So, first we go back to the basics. What is Jumah?
Now, very important aspect, brother, I think, because we are living in a different time zone. We are living in a time where new issues are coming up, where new restrictions are coming up. So based on that, I guess people are, naturally going to ask certain questions in order to deal with or combat with the situation. As you asked, the main issue here is what is Jum'ah? Or the main subject that we want to discuss is what is Jum'ah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commands in the Quran in Surah Al-Jum'ah, Surah number 62, ayah number 9, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commands to the believers that when the call, إِذَا نُودِيَ لِلصَّلَاةِ min yawm al-Jum'ah, when the call for Salah, for the Jum'ah prayer is given, then go for the prayer, leave everything and go for the dhikr of Allah, the remembrance of Allah, and leave the bay'ah, yani leave the market, leave the business, leave the work that you are into. So Jum'ah is an obligation on the ummah. So we know from the wordings of the Prophet, from the command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran, and from the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that Jum'ah is an obligation on the ummah. We know the severity of not praying Jum'ah, that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam warned against those people who would intentionally leave 3 consecutive Jum'ahs, that would be having serious consequences on the faith of the person. So all of this gives us an idea that Jum'ah is an obligation, is the command of Allah in the Quran, and from the seerah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, since the time of the command of Jum'ah, it has been continuously being offered and prayed in times of peace and in times of war as well. So Jum'ah has never been neglected or should never be neglected. Jum'ah is an obligation.
But these days we are living in a time of online media technology, and everything can be done online pretty much, and people are working from home, companies are run by home. So, and especially in times of this lockdown, can a person pray Jum'ah via online?
So I think let's put few basic things together. Point number 1 is we are talking about this because we are in a restriction mode. We are in a lockdown situation in different parts of the world. All of this because of the coronavirus, what you call as an abbreviation COVID-19. And we are living here in 2020 in the month of April, for example, now. That is why we are discussing this. So this is not to be generalized in normal times or usual times. So that's one basic thing to remember. Point number 2 is, see, I and you, from a knowledge perspective, we are not scholars. So what I'm going to be discussing here is not something I as an individual, as Waseem, is going to give any fatwa. I'm not allowed. It's not permissible for me to give any fatwa. That is not our jurisdiction. What I and you as normal Muslims, as common Muslims, as lay people could do is we can become a bridge between the scholars and the lay people and the common people. So everyday Muslims and the scholars. Everyday Muslim might not get an opportunity to ring every scholar for every issue that they come across. The good part is, alhamdulillah, people like us, we are in some contact with the scholars, with the mashayikh. We have access to the mashayikh. I have, on this particular issue itself, I have ranked scholars within Australia, I have ranked scholars overseas as well, and I have gathered opinions of the scholars on this matter. So we have this mercy from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that we have access to the mashayikh. So based on what the scholarly opinions are, all what I and you are doing now is bringing those fatwas to the common people. That is all what we can do. So what I'm mentioning here is to make sure that this is not a fatwa from me. I do not have the right to give a fatwa. I'm not a shaykh. I'm not a scholar in that regard. Although I have access to the mashayikh, so all I'm doing is conveying the message of the mashayikh, the fatawa, to the people here, inshallah. Now, the question is, can we pray through online khutbah or online prayer? That's the issue. Now, you've mentioned right in the beginning as well that it's probably the issue is not just about the Jum'ah itself. It is about the daily four prayers as well. It is also about what you call the Taraweeh that is going to soon come in the month of Ramadan. Can we watch online Imam and pray at home? That is the question, because most of us across the globe are in a lockdown situation. The masajid are closed, so we do not have access to the masajid. So I'm at home, I'm praying my jama'ah, the congregation at home with my family on a regular basis. But the question is now, can I watch online the Imam and can I pray behind him in my home? So can I pray behind the online Imam? That is the question. Now, the response to that, the answer to that from a fiqh perspective, from the scholarly opinions that I have gathered by not just one Imam here in Melbourne, not just a couple of Imams across Australia, not just Imams across the globe. I've spoken to several, and the constant response has been no, the online khatib, the online Imam cannot be your Imam for the prayer being prayed from home. So it is not permissible. There is no accommodation of such possibility in the jurisprudence of Islam.
Okay. So having said that, what are the preconditions for a Jummah to be valid in the first place? So I guess if we laid out these conditions and people will understand these conditions, they can understand this issue in a better way.
Sure. I think it's very important that from a common man's perspective, we need to know yes or no. So for most of us, a yes or no from a sheikh is more than enough. But also it is good to have more information and more understanding and further knowledge that why are these fatawas being made and what is the basis of that. So you've asked the question, what are the conditions for a Jum'ah? So the condition for any Jama'ah remains the same. Whether Jum'ah, the 5 daily prayers, or the Taraweeh that is going to come in Ramadan, or the Eid prayer. All the Jama'ahs, the congregational prayers, the condition remains the same. As of now, we are talking about Jum'ah, so let's put it in context. Can we pray Jum'ah through an online khutbah? No. Can we pray Taraweeh through an online khutbah? No. Can I pray the 5 daily prayers through an online Imam? No. Why not? What are the conditions? What are the conditions for being part of a congregation, of a Jama'ah? What you need to do to be part of the Jama'ah is you need to be in continuity of the rows of the congregation behind the Imam. So when you have the Imam, you have the first row behind him. I cannot stand at the end of the masjid and be part of the Jama'ah. I cannot, because the continuity of the Jama'ah is broken. The moment the continuity is broken, I'm not part of the Jama'ah. So I can be part of the Jama'ah by being in the first row or the second row, or wherever the rows are ending, I can be in the next row. But I cannot break the rows, like 10 rows, and stand in the 11th row, and there is nobody in the 10 rows, and I be part of the Jama'ah. No, I cannot be. So that is one condition. So the condition is you need to be part of the Jama'ah. To be part of the Jama'ah, you need to be part of the rows in continuity behind the Imam. Now, the situation comes in Jum'ah, generally the masjid is full. So people pray in the upstairs, people pray in the side rooms, people pray outside the masjid as well. So the scholars, they say that the condition of being part of the Jama'ah still remains as it is. So I cannot pray outside the masjid if the masjid is empty. If the masjid is completely full to the last row, what happens after the door now is the pavement or the stairs. So leaving that, I still continue. So the next row is after the stairs, so I need to join that. If the ground floor is filled up, the first floor after the stairs, immediately the first floor needs to be filled up now. I cannot leave the first floor and go to the second floor to pray. So they have to be in continuity. So if the Jama'ah is in continuity behind the Imam, that's when the Salah is part of the Jama'ah. That's when I as an individual is part of the Jama'ah, of the congregation. If I miss the row, then I'm not part of the Jama'ah. So now with the online khutbah, I'm not anywhere near the vicinity of the masjid. I'm not near the space of the masjid. I'm not near the boundary of the masjid. And the masjid is not even offering the Jama'ah. So I cannot be part of it unless and until I am in the vicinity of the Jama'ah. So the same applies to the Jum'ah, and the same shall apply to the Taraweeh. While they may be praying in Jama'ah, for example, you can have the live telecast from Masjid al-Haram. Now in Mecca, they will be having Taraweeh, they are having the Jum'ah, they're having the 5 daily prayers, although with restricted number of people. I can switch on to my TV and I can watch the Jama'ah. I can watch the congregation, but I cannot join the congregation. So the condition of the Jama'ah is that you need to be part of the Jama'ah behind the Imam in the continuity of the rows, or if you miss 1 row or 2 rows, there is some space there, like the women's room. They might not have the 3rd, 4th, 5th row filled up with the men, but there is a women's room where they are praying. So they may hear the imam and they may see the imam. These are other conditions added to it, but the primary condition remains the rows must be connected and should be within the confined space.
So I believe the answer is no, we cannot pray at home. So following that answer, now people are praying at home definitely. So what they should be doing at the time of Jumah timing? Should they be praying 4 rakat zuhr, or should they be making small congregations of Jumah with their family in their home?
Okay. Again, this is a question which has a difference of opinion amongst the scholars. So what we're talking about is, okay, we understood that we can't do online khutbah and join the jama'ah. No, I can't do that. Now, while I'm at home, I'm going to be praying my 5 daily prayers in jama'ah, in congregation. Now, this is also part of the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The Prophet recommended, and one of the hadith mentions that when a person entered the masjid and he was praying alone, so the Prophet asked the companions, the group of people who were there, he asked, who is ready to give charity to his brother and would join him in prayer? So one of the recommendations is, it is always better to pray in jama'ah, in 2s, 3s or 4s. The larger the jama'ah, the greater the reward. And the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ that if you pray in jama'ah in the masjid, the first jama'ah, the official jama'ah of the masjid, then you get 27 times more ajr for your prayer than if you prayed alone. So, and then lesser than that, the second jama'ah, and if you're praying at home with jama'ah, so the reward is lesser than 27, but more than one jama'ah, more than one prayer. So the asl is that we should try pray in jama'ah. So in my house, while I'm in a restrictive mode, while there is a lockdown, while the masjid is locked, what I need to do is I need to make sure that I pray in jama'ah with my family members, with my brothers, with my kids, with my family, with my wife, whatever. More than one person is what is required. So we should do that. Now, specifically about Jum'ah now. So the Jum'ah is not being conducted in the local masjid. So I am recommended to pray Zuhr in the house. That is the general recommendation that is there. That pray Zuhr in your house. That is the general recommendation. Now, the scholars have differed on this matter, and we respect both opinions because both have got their own conclusions based on the verses of the Quran and based on the hadiths of the Prophet ﷺ. So we respect both, but we have the right to choose which we think is more stronger. So I'm not going to give a verdict here. Rather, I'm simply going to mention both opinions. So one opinion of the scholars is, if you've got more than 3 people and you have a person who is knowledgeable enough, who is knowledgeable enough to lead a khutbah, to deliver a khutbah, and he knows all the conditions of a jama'ah and the Jum'ah, and he's learned in the Quran, and his recitation of the Quran is good and valid, then he has the right to lead a Jum'ah wherever he is, whether he is praying at home, whether he is praying at a park, or whether he is praying at a musalla. So this is permissible. Now the question is, but we are locked in our houses. I can't go to a musalla and pray. I can't go to a park and pray because we are in a restrictive mode of, here in Australia, we're in a restrictive mode of not more than 2 people can gather. So even if I'm praying at home, I cannot have more than one person coming to my house to pray. I can hardly have one visitor at my home. That's the restriction we are having in Australia. And similar restrictions are there in different parts of the world. There is what you call complete curfew. There is complete lockdown in different countries. So depending on the situation, they would be applying the rules. But the basis of this is, can I pray Jum'ah at home by myself or with my family? Most of the scholars I spoke to, they said no, because they said there is no gathering here. There is nobody joining in the prayer. The Jum'ah is in a congregation, in a jama'ah, where people can gather. At least 1 or 2 should come from outside. If nobody is coming from outside, they said the family, the household of a family by itself, me, my wife and 3 kids or 4 kids or 5 kids, whatever, is not a Jum'ah. Some scholars are of this opinion. The other scholars said, as long as there are 3 adults in a house, 3 male adults are there in a house, they said this is the minimum requirement, and that household may pray Jum'ah. So this is another opinion. The further opinion has been that if there is more than one family at the house, so it's not one husband, wife, 3 kids, but it is 5 adults of 2 different families, husband, wife, parents, and another husband, wife. So they got like 3 families and 6 adults who are there in the house. So they said that this is a jama'ah now, because it's a congregation, it's more than a family, more than a household. So some scholars said that this is permissible. The other scholars again restricted. They said, because there is nobody joining from outside, they said the condition should be of Jum'ah that people are allowed to join. Okay, you can restrict the numbers, You can restrict who can come in, who cannot. You can say 60 years old and older may not join in. But they said if you're joining in Jum'ah, if you're not having people together, then it's not Jum'ah. So the bottom line is now, we've got two major opinions. One is, if Jum'ah in the masjid is cancelled, then the scholars, one group of scholars said it is only zuhr now. So just pray zuhr with your family in Jama'ah. The other group of scholars said, if you are 3 or more and you have a valid imam who fulfills the conditions of imam, who is a learned person, who knows the Quran, who has a good recitation, and he knows the conditions of the Jama'ah and Jum'ah, then he may decide to lead the prayer. So the two opinions are there, and the scholars have differed on this, so I leave it at that it is up to the people to choose which opinion they go through. And a simpler way would be they ring the local imam of the masjid, who they are regularly in touch with, and ask his opinion, and they may go with that opinion.
Yep.
So it is up to the people, but these are the two opinions that are out there.
Sure. Just a last doubt or a confusion. Since last 2 Jumas, there are some masajids within Australia, I guess, and I'm not sure about the other countries. There are some masajids, what they are doing is they are live streaming. I'm not sure if it's a Jumah khutba or a lecture, but they're doing at the time of Jumah itself, like 1:30, 2 o'clock. They are live streaming. It's a kind of a khutba, and people are confused whether it's a khutba, should we be following it online, or just a lecture, and there's some sort of confusion going on. So what's your thought on this one?
Right. I think what I've seen this, and I've come across this. I think what is happening is some of the masajid and Islamic centers and mosques and musallas, what they're doing is, because the masajid are closed, because there is no more Jum'ah and there is no Jum'ah khutbah, so what some of the masajid are doing is trying to fulfill the spiritual needs of the people. Because most of us, if not all, majority of us are usually available between 1 o'clock to 2 o'clock to pray Jum'ah in the Jama'ah in the masjid. That has been the practice for all this time. So what is happening suddenly now, because there is no masjid organizing Jum'ah and there is no congregation in the masjid, some of the masajid has decided to go ahead with what they call as Jum'ah khutbah online. All what they're trying to do is they're just trying to fulfill the spiritual needs of the people, because people need reminders, and Jum'ah khutbah usually is a reminder for the people of goodness, of what to do good and what is prohibited in Islam. It's a sort of reminder for the people about the Islamic etiquettes and Islamic teachings. So what the masajid are doing is trying to fulfill that gap, that spiritual need of the people. So let them have, because they're all available, they're all free at home, so let them now attend a lecture during the Jum'ah time, which was the usual time they were available. So I believe that what they're doing is simply a lecture. They may be titling it as Jum'ah khutbah, just so that people feel that I'm not being neglected from a khutbah, from a reminder on a Friday at 1:30 p.m. or a 1 p.m. But I don't believe that any of them are organizing it as a Jum'ah salah. It's not a Jum'ah salah. It is simply being titled as Jum'ah khutbah or a Friday khutbah or a Friday lecture, so that people are usually available at that time. I think probably it is time for the masajid and the Islamic speakers to think about it and not title it as Jum'ah khutbah, that this would create some confusion amongst the masses. Instead, just title it Friday lecture, or just title it a lecture or an online speech, by a title of the speech or whatever. Instead of calling it Jum'ah khutbah, then it may create some concern amongst the listeners.
Sure. Jazakallah khair, brother, for this information, and I hope inshallah this will help a lot of people to help clear their misconceptions. Having said that, inshallah we'll be back in our next episode. We are going to speak about Ramadan, and because this Ramadan is going to be very different from our traditional Ramadan, where we have iftar gatherings, tarawih, 5-time salah in the masjid, and all those things. So inshallah we will be back with some very informative session about how to and what to do in this particular Ramadan. Until then, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.